So right before the Spud Nation Throwdown today, there was an interesting presentation that frankly piqued my ears, and it really talked about potatoes, blood glucose levels, and some state-of-the-art research that could well change the potato world. Dr. Nick Bellisimio is with us. He's the Associate Professor at the Nutrition Discovery Labs. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So for those who missed it, and again, we're on Facebook Live, we're at YouTube, so we've got people watching that are not here at the Potato Expo. Give us the 101 about the research that you're doing and how it really affects the potato world.
Yeah, I think part of what we're doing is we're really trying to apply an evidence-based approach to understanding how potatoes affect human health. My research group really focuses on trying to understand how food and food components affect appetite and food intake, and how it affects excursions in blood glucose levels. So what we did with our potato research is we looked at how potatoes in a variety of different forms affect short-term food intake, blood glucose levels, and cognitive performance. And
so you're talking about mashed potatoes, French fries, what type of variety?
Right, so we tested 3 different preparations, so
okay.
Mashed potatoes, fried French fries, and hash browns.
Got it.
Yeah. And part of what we did was we fed those at various doses and looked at a number of cognitive performance outcomes, including memory performance. And what we actually found is that eating French fries for breakfast improved one aspect of short-term cognitive performance in the form of short-term declarative memory. Yeah.
So
it's quite interesting
for
for
all
us.
those people who keep on saying, French fries, that's the past. And certainly when we look at brain health, for me, one of the things that I'm looking at very carefully is brain health, and as I've said before, we see it necessary for infants, and we also see it necessary for the aging baby boomer population. So little kids and older people, French fries are okay.
Yeah, and I think you have to position the potato within the context of the habitual dietary pattern.
Sure.
Right, and so there's no reason to exclude potatoes as part of a healthy diet, and I would say that potatoes in a variety of forms can actually be beneficial and not simply kind of, in the middle of the road. They really have some functional benefits, and there's some number of properties in the white potato specifically that is just kind of emerging that really is going to have some, in my opinion, have some really beneficial effects on human health.
So, this is antithetical to what most consumers think. They think the white potato, starch really doesn't have a lot. Maybe if we're lucky, some consumers know that there's a lot of potassium in it, but that's really the extent of it. So you're saying that with this new research that's coming out, it's going to flip way over.
Yeah, I mean, part of what we're exploring is, look, we understand that white potatoes are a good source of vitamin C and fiber, and there's the potassium. But beyond those components, there are other bioactives in white potatoes that are really interesting. Trypsin inhibitors, for instance, are an example of a component that is in the white potato, and actually might be part of the reason why potatoes are satiating, is due to the trypsin inhibitor activity that's found, and it actually might help control the excursion, that is that rise in blood sugar levels.
Right.
It's lower than what would be predicted from its composition, which is actually really remarkable. There's probably dozens of other components in white potatoes that probably have really beneficial effects. And part of what we're trying to do is figure out what those components are and what the mechanism of action is in terms of how it affects appetite and food intake.
So I've got to think that today, doing what you do is very different than it would have been even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because of technology. This has got to be, probably the most exciting aspect of food and certainly nutrition that there is. So what are the kind of tools that you have at your availability today that researchers didn't have when it came to finding out these kinds of research findings 10 years ago?
Yeah, and I think you're right. There are absolutely some cutting-edge tools that allow us to monitor things like body composition that we weren't able to monitor years ago. Looking at analytes in blood, some of these components that I mentioned about, a multitude of hormones that we can measure now that 50 years ago we absolutely could not measure. So I think the combination of the technology and ensuring that the right study design is employed is really going to allow
us to... And that's critical.
Yeah, and that's critical. And I think part of what you alluded to earlier around the standards of evidence, we have to move away from less objective to really the top of the line, cutting edge research trials, and those are randomized control trials, and that's what we do. So we run the right trials. We're moving away from less, more subjective data around dietary food recalls, and I think the combination of the right study design and the technology that you mentioned is really moving us definitely forward. And I think that'll benefit the potato industry, but I think the food industry as a whole is going to benefit from the type of technology that we're employing in our research program.
So with the technology we have now, we've just gone through another phase of the Dietary Guidelines. It's going to come up in another few years again. Do you think that we're going to, because of science and because of folks like you, we're going to see a really much more robust dietary guidelines that are built on science versus people arguing with each other?
Right, and I think part of that is, there's a political component there.
Absolutely.
And I'm an outsider looking in. I'm Canadian looking into the U.S. system. But I think part of it too is we're going to get much better at doing food modeling and being able to predict what a healthful dietary pattern actually looks like, and then what's achievable for the average Canadian or American, right? So I think we're moving using the technology, like I mentioned earlier. We're moving in the right direction. And listen, I'm all for it. I mean, an evidence-based approach to dietary guidance is my dream.
Yep, it would be great for all of us.
I think for all of us, because I think at the end of the day, we're really trying to figure out what can I eat to maximize, the limited time that I have on this planet, and if I can figure out a way to add 10 more years beyond my biology, that's a win for me, and that's a win for the healthcare system as well.
Well, thank you so much for your research. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for being with us at the Eye. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break now. In fact, it's actually a pretty long break. It's going to be close to 2 hours. We're going to head over and hear Merrill Hodge, the ex-NFL star, talk about everything that he's been through in life. We're going to have a lunch break, and then we're going to announce the Spud Nation winner throwdown. Who's going to be top Spud this year? Come back and find out.